July 20th, 1975, Norfolk Scope Arena. 75,000 screaming fans fall silent as Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, drops to his knees. In front of him stands a small figure, a blind girl who couldn't see his famous smile, his diamond-studded jumpsuit, or his legendary moves. But she could feel something far more powerful, pure, unfiltered humanity from the world's biggest superstar. What happened next wasn't just a concert moment, it was a testament to the soul of a man who, despite his fame and fortune, never forgot the power of human connection. This is the story of how one little girl's presence made Elvis cry, and how their brief encounter revealed the true heart of the king. The Norfolk Scope Arena was electric with anticipation that summer evening in 1975. 75,000 fans, packed into every available seat, their voices creating a thunderous roar that could be heard blocks away. Elvis Presley, at the height of his comeback years, commanded the stage with his signature white jumpsuit sparkling under the arena lights. The crowd was in a frenzy typical for an Elvis concert, where grown women fainted and strong men openly wept just from hearing him croon "Love Me Tender." But this night would be different. As Elvis moved through his setlist, delivering one electrifying performance after another, something caught his eye during a brief pause between songs. To the left of the stage, barely visible in the sea of faces, stood a small figure that seemed oddly still amidst the chaos. While thousands of fans were screaming, reaching out their hands, and pushing forward to get closer to their idol, this little girl simply stood there, motionless yet somehow radiating a presence that cut through all the noise. The king of rock and roll had performed for presidents and prime ministers, had sold millions of records, and had commanded stages across the world. But in that moment, something about this quiet little figure drew him like a magnet. Perhaps it was his innate ability to spot someone who needed special attention, or maybe it was the way she seemed to be listening with her entire being rather than just looking. Whatever it was, Elvis felt compelled to investigate. Setting down his microphone with the casual confidence of a man who owned every room he entered, Elvis walked to the edge of the stage. The crowd screaming reached fever pitch as they realized their idol was coming closer. But Elvis's attention was laser-focused on the little girl who had captured his curiosity. As he approached and knelt down to her level, the reality of the situation hit him like a thunderbolt. She was blind. Her eyes, though beautiful, held the telltale quality of someone who experienced the world through senses other than sight. In that instant, everything changed for Elvis, and subsequently, for every single person in that arena. What happened next would be seared into the memory of every witness present. Elvis Presley, the man who could make stadiums erupt with a single hip swivel, became as gentle as a whisper. He knelt down completely, bringing himself to the little girl's level, and began speaking to her in tones so soft that even the front row couldn't make out his words. The microphone lay forgotten on the stage floor as the king engaged in what was perhaps the most important conversation of his career. The arena, which moments before had been a cacophony of screams and cheers, fell into an almost supernatural quiet. 75,000 people collectively held their breath, sensing they were witnessing something sacred. Those close enough later reported that Elvis was asking the girl about herself, her name, her age, whether she was enjoying the show. His voice carried a tenderness that contrasted sharply with the powerful vocals that had been filling the arena just minutes before. But it was what Elvis did next that broke hearts throughout the venue. With movements that seemed choreographed by compassion itself, he removed the silk scarf from around his neck, the very scarf that thousands of fans would have paid fortunes to possess. He pressed it gently to his lips, kissing it with the same reverence one might show a sacred artifact. Then, in a gesture that would define his legacy more than any song he ever recorded, he tenderly touched the scarf to the little girl's eyes and draped it around her shoulders. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone present. Here was a man at the pinnacle of fame and fortune, literally bending down to honor someone who society often overlooked. The blind girl, who couldn't see his famous face or his glittering costume, was experiencing Elvis in the purest way possible through his actions, his voice, and his heart. As she stood there, absorbing his presence through every sense except sight, something magical was happening. The king was showing his kingdom what true royalty looked like, and it had nothing to do with crowns or thrones. As Elvis continued his intimate conversation with the little girl, something unprecedented began to happen. Those fortunate enough to be in the front sections of the arena started to notice a change in the superstar's demeanor. His voice, which had remained steady through countless performances and interviews, began to waver. The man who had faced down hostile audiences, critical media, and the pressures of unprecedented fame was struggling to maintain his composure in the face of one small girl's quiet dignity. The little girl, responding to Elvis's kindness, had begun to smile, not the rehearsed smile of someone meeting a celebrity, but the genuine, radiant smile of a child experiencing pure joy. She couldn't see the tears that were beginning to form in Elvis's eyes, but she could feel the sincerity in his voice, the gentleness of his touch, and the complete attention he was giving her. For perhaps the first time in years, Elvis wasn't performing. He was simply being human. When Elvis finally picked up his microphone again, his voice was noticeably different. The smooth, controlled tone that had serenaded millions was replaced by something raw and real. He dedicated the next song to a very special little girl, and as he began to sing, his voice cracked with emotion. The song, later reported to be "How Great Thou Art," took on an entirely different meaning as Elvis poured his heart into every note, singing not for the masses, but for an audience of one who experienced music in ways the sighted world could barely comprehend. The impact on the crowd was immediate and profound. Reports from that night describe a ripple effect of emotion that swept through the arena like wildfire. Hardened men found themselves wiping their eyes, while women openly sobbed at the beauty of what they were witnessing. This wasn't just entertainment. It was a master class in humanity. The blind girl had unwittingly become a mirror, reflecting back to Elvis and to everyone watching what really mattered in life. Fame, fortune, and fan adoration paled in comparison to the simple act of showing kindness to someone who needed it most. The immediate aftermath of Elvis's encounter with the blind girl created a transformation that extended far beyond that single evening. As word spread about what had happened, first through the whispered conversations of departing fans, then through local media, and eventually across the entire Elvis fan community, the incident became legendary. But more importantly, it revealed a side of Elvis that many had suspected, but few had witnessed so dramatically. His profound capacity for empathy and his genuine love for people, especially those facing challenges. The little girl herself, whose identity was initially kept private out of respect for her family, later became a symbol of how music and human connection transcend physical limitations. Stories emerged of how Elvis had arranged for her to receive special care, and how he had stayed in touch with her family long after that night. The scarf she received became more than a memento. It became a testament to the power of seeing beyond surface appearances to recognize the inherent worth in every individual. For Elvis, this encounter seemed to mark a turning point in his later performances. Band members and close associates noted that he began incorporating more moments of personal connection into his shows. He would frequently scan audiences looking for people who might need special attention: disabled veterans, elderly fans, or children who seemed overwhelmed by the massive crowds. The Norfolk incident had reminded him why he had fallen in love with performing in the first place. Not for the adoration, but for the connection, the broader impact rippled through popular culture as well. The story became a touchstone for discussions about celebrity responsibility and the true meaning of fame. In an era where many entertainers seemed increasingly disconnected from their audiences, Elvis's genuine moment of human connection stood as a powerful counterexample. It demonstrated that real star power comes not from being untouchable, but from being willing to touch others' lives in meaningful ways. The blind girl had given Elvis something invaluable, a reminder of his own humanity, and in return, he had shown the world what true greatness looked like. The story of Elvis and the blind girl at Norfolk Scope Arena reminds us that our greatest moments often come not from our achievements, but from our acts of simple human kindness. In a world increasingly obsessed with image and status, Elvis showed us that true royalty lies in how we treat those who need our compassion most. Ready to discover more untold stories that changed music history? Subscribe to our newsletter and never miss the moments that made legends human. Because sometimes the most powerful performances happen when the music stops and the heart takes center stage. Subscribe now. Share this story. Read more legendary moments.